for example. So thinking about how you support them holistically, this is some advice from the counselling department here, particularly supportive and positive language, ensuring that they have that balance of academics, activities and socialising with their peers. We really don't want students to be spending all their time studying. It just doesn't benefit them at all, and if they spend all their time studying, it just means that the studying isn't of the quality that it could be if they are making their schedule more balanced. We know that students will make mistakes. Children make mistakes a lot and they learn from those mistakes. So we want to make sure that rather than punishing them for making mistakes, we use any mistakes as a learning opportunity. It's also important, this message has come from the counselling department a lot, that your children know what to expect, and equally you talk about those expectations in a kind of mutual conversation with mutual understanding. Again, this is advice from the counselling department about how to foster those effective communication methods with your teenagers. Tech-free time. I know some people have a struggle and quite a battle with this. Ensuring that you have quality time together. Again, back to avoiding that full-time studying. We want the students to build connections with their families and friends, because those connections are what keep them going, particularly in times of adversity. So, we're nearly at the end of the information from me. I just want to end by just resharing these key dates with you of things that are coming up, like future coffee mornings, three-way conferences, and the reporting systems that we've spoken about already. You do have a copy of this, I think, shared with you here ahead, and I'll reshare it again in Friday's e-brief. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can look at any questions. I don't seem to have any questions in the chat at the moment. If you have any questions, you want to just write them in the chat window, and then I can try and answer them. You can also write no questions if you want, so I know that you can hear me. Okay, so I've got a question here about the difference between grade 10 FIB and IGCSE. So if I refer back to that distinction between the IGCSE and the UWC SEA learning programme, when new students join us in grade 10, they complete the FIB programme, which is all about the UWC SEA standards and understandings and conceptual understandings, rather than thinking about those demonstrations of skills that are required by the IGCSE exams on the IGCSE syllabus. So there is some overlap. For example, in grade 10 FIB English, I'm speaking to English particularly because I'm an English teacher, so I know a lot about it. The students will study a Shakespeare play, just like the students in grade 10 IGCSE classes study a Shakespeare play. There's a question here as well while I'm talking about IGCSE that it's not mandatory. I know that there have already been some conversations between students and Ms Jones, the Vice Principal, about whether IGCSE is mandatory. It is not. And you may have heard already that some students this year withdrew from the IGCSE programme in light of all the changes. We know that a lot of our students go to destinations after grade 12 that don't require IGCSE at all. So it's very dependent on the next destination for you, whether you want your children to complete the full IGCSE. So someone's asked about summer internships. We do encourage the students to complete summer internships if they are able to strike that balance. Obviously, a lot of the summer internships that were planned in the last summer weren't able to go ahead. We are conscious of the fact that there are many internships that are offered, so we do encourage the students to be quite selective about what they choose to ensure that they manage to get a break at the same time as completing the internships. And we fully support these though, and we know that we get many students coming to us for references as they apply for these internships. I'm just going to look at some of the other questions. So we've got a question here about a plan B for if outdoor education trips aren't able to go ahead this year. I know that we usually start the FIB year with a trip to either Bintan, or in the past it's been Tiamen, and obviously that wasn't able to go ahead. Next week, the FIB students will be doing their outdoor education experience here on campus, because under current restrictions, we're not even allowed to take them off campus. So they've got a plan B. So I haven't had confirmation yet from the outdoor education department, but I do hope that we will be able to provide a plan B if outdoor ed trips can't go ahead. We will be informed of a decision on that around October half term, I'm told, because that will be a cross-campus decision. So we need to wait for that discussion to happen. But I'm very, very hopeful that there'll be an alternative, because we do need students to fulfill that element of the learning programme, and it's still very, very important to us. Hopefully that answers the question about the grade 9 school trip as well. I've got a question here: will the students who have chosen to take GC as their service be travelling for their chosen service? GCs all take place in school, so there's no travelling required for those services. Sometimes if a GC is affiliated with another partner in Vietnam or Ladakh, sometimes trips do go ahead to those service partnerships, but obviously this term we won't have that at all, but hopefully in the future something might happen. Someone's asked about internships in grade 9 or 10, and where can you find more information? We do actually have Pat in the University Advising Centre who is able to offer more information about internships. I will add a note to the e-brief with his details and some more information, so I can give you a bit more information about that. I've also got a question here about NYAA. That can be completed. We'll ensure that there's opportunity for the students to complete that. I'm not sure exactly what that will look like at this stage. Hopefully, as we get closer to October and into the second half term, we'll have more of an idea of what that will look like. And yes, someone, Patrick manages the internship opportunities, as well as Vanessa Wiseman, who manages the Room of Learning project that FIB students complete. So it looks like a lot of people have questions about internships, so I'll try and answer those in the e-brief that comes out on Friday. Any other questions from anybody? I just want to say thank you to you all for joining me today. I know it's not quite the same when we can't all meet in person, so I do appreciate you taking the time to log into the webinar today. Just another question that's come up just before we finish: are external activities included in the school reports to unis? We ask when we write recommendations that the students let us know what other activities we should mention, so that we can include those. When teachers write recommendations, the teachers that are asked tend to know the students very, very well. If the university advisors are writing the recommendations, they equally know the students very, very well. So all of those external activities will be included in those recommendations. They won't be on the transcript, but we can include them in our references. Sorry, just one more question about expeditions. Someone's asked if they could be postponed to grade 10 for this cohort. I think that I'm kind of speaking for the outdoor education department here. I hope that that's an option, but I know that if they don't take place in October, then there'll be concerns about the impact of going on expeditions in terms of preparation for IGCSEs for those students who are completing them. So that's something that the outdoor education will take into, the outdoor education department will take into account. I do hope we'll have more of an answer on that later in the term. I'm really hopeful because it's such a wonderful part of the learning programme. So just fingers crossed on that one. Okay, if you do have any more questions, do feel free to email me and I'll add any questions that come.
कुछ नहीं जाता, ज्यादा प्यार हो जाता तो मैं सह नहीं पाता, इसमें तेरा खाता, तेरा कुछ नहीं जाता, ज्यादा प्यार हो जाता तो मैं सह नहीं पाता। कुछ खास खाए मेरी नजर से देखा इस बात का बस थोड़ी सी कोशिश नहीं तुमने, इसमें तेरा खाता, तेरा कुछ नहीं जाता, ज्यादा प्यार हो जाता तो मैं सह नहीं पाता, इसमें तेरा खाता, तेरा कुछ नहीं जाता, ज्यादा प्यार हो जाता तो मैं सह नहीं पाता।
Some of concern, and these might look slightly different, or I think they might be familiar to what you had in middle school. If your child ever is given a concern, we do ask that you're given a warning beforehand, so it doesn't come as a surprise. But of course, if you want to follow up whenever a concern is given, please do so. So, you might be wondering why we bother with these grades at all. First of all, in terms of attainments, it helps us to identify the progress of the students, and it helps us to understand how they're going to perform in the more formal assessments that take place, particularly in exams. We also need to ensure consistency and thoroughness as we assess the students, and we need to know what they know and what they're able to do in order to plan for the next lessons or the next phase for them. In a more logistical way, we use the end of year grades for their academic transcripts, which students share if they ever change schools or when they apply to university. And this is what the academic transcripts will look like. So you can see that it's only the end of year grades that are used on the academic transcript. So none of the interim grades are shown on there. So December grades aren't shown on there. You'll notice as well that exam grades that we plan to have at the end of grade 9 are not on there either. That's really important to us that the exam grades aren't on there, because those exams are a practice. They're a kind of practice performance of what the students can do, and we don't want them to be defined by those exam grades. And you'll see that in grade 10, their final IGCSE results are displayed on the academic transcripts. So I did just use the word performance there in terms of approaching the exams. We do keep stressing to the students, and it's important that they hear this message from home as well, that there's a difference between progress and performance. We at the moment are concerned with progress, and that's what we want to see in the students. And as we work towards them making progress, it's the conversations that we have with them as mentors, as teachers, as parents, that will help to support them and set goals and help them to make progress as they work towards their final performance. We do want to stress to them as well that each task that they do or presentation, it is a performance of what they know, but it could also just be a marker of their progress. One of the reasons that we want to focus on this is because when we ask the students about what they think of when they hear the word assessment, these are some of the words that come up. You can see that many of these words are not positive ones, and that's why we want to be optimistic about progress. We want them to know that progress is good, and the performance at the end of it that does tend to be assessed is again a marker of progression. It's quite worrying that the students, when they think about assessment, come up with such negative terms, and that's why we're so keen to support them as they go through attainment cycles and assessment cycles, especially kind of later on in the year, for example, when they will do exams, and those times can be quite stressful for them. So we have a lot of strategies in place to support the students academically. So we help them to set goals, we help them to think about what they did well, show them exemplars. We use lots of different strategies in class to support them. We use their friends and peers to help them to make progress. And the key thing as well is that feedback from teachers in terms of next steps. And I hope that when you have the three-way conferences with your children and their teachers, these are some of the things that come up out of those conversations as they set their goals. We also support them with understanding academic honesty. And I want to add this in here because I've already spoken to a few students who have various types of tuition, which is a great line of support to them, but it's very important that they understand where the help from peers or tutors or even parents becomes collusion, and where their own work stops being their own. We will revisit this in a later coffee morning, so that's in red now, just as a heads up that might come up again later. So there's support, and then there's over support, which we want the students to be responsible for. So you might be wondering how you can support them with their academic progress. We want you to have the conversations with them about their ATLs. We know that students aren't always open about how they're doing in school. My daughter just recently started in K1, and I'm already getting, when I ask what she did at school, she tells me played, and that's all I get. Obviously she's not at the stage of ATLs and next steps yet, but I'm thinking about how those conversations take place in a meaningful way. Some of the students have already spoken to me about the difference in workload now in high school compared to what they had in middle school. I think some of them came to high school thinking it was going to be crazy and stressful and unmanageable, and they've realised that it's actually okay, or it's certainly okay at the moment. But it's really important that they prioritise what they need to prioritise and manage their workload carefully. This is particularly important as they've signed up for activities and some services already. We need to make sure that their schedule isn't overfull, and because we don't want them to burn out. It would also be good if you could think about the key concepts that they're learning in units. Getting them to talk about what they've learned is so important for them to consolidate their understandings. And even if they're learning about the concept of time and space in English, that will obviously look very different to their understanding of the concepts of time and space in physics. So getting them to talk about key concepts is a really powerful way of consolidating their learning and challenging their thinking. I mentioned before the collusion regulations. That's just that idea of over support again, so just being aware of those. And just making sure that students get a break as well. We want them to have a weekend, we want them to have a holiday. We want them not to have to work every single night and not have a social life or relax with you and the rest of their families. So do ensure that they get that break as well, because we know that that recharge and reset is so important to them. and do communicate with us as well if you have any concerns. So in terms of that communication, I did spend a little bit of time talking about our options for support in high school. So you'll probably have heard from Ray already. So Ray is our grade 9 secretary. If students are ever absent, you can get in touch with Ray. If you have questions about anything, you can get in touch with Ray, and she'll either direct you to me or to specific parts of the school. But she's a great line of support. If your if your children are ever sick and they are staying on school, they can email Ray, but we do ask that they copy you into that communication as well. I talked last week as well about the academic coaches who are here to support your children with studying techniques, organising themselves, and they do any assessments that the students might need to help them as they prepare for exams. And they're fantastic lines of support to many of our students who have who need that extra help with organisation, time management, or academic performance. So I want to share this video with you now from Robbie Jeffries, who is our support from the University Advising Centre.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Robbie Jeffries. I am one of the 5 university advisors here at UWC SEA East Campus. I'm delighted to be able to join you for this coffee morning. I just want to tell you a little bit about some of the resources and some of the things that we do here in the University Advising Center, just to give you a kind of a snapshot of what is going to come up for the grade group. Well, first of all, my name is Robbie, and I will actually follow the grade all the way through until graduation, and working closely with Gemma, the head of grade, to provide programming to students that is age appropriate from 9th grade all the way to graduation, getting students prepared for life after UWC SEA, whether that's going on to university or to gap years.